And I'm telling you, I cried in the movie, the first Slam Dunk, and I felt a little embarrassed about that. I cried in this scene, and you know how embarrassed I felt about that? Like, this is a goofy cartoon for teenagers and kids, and I'm crying. Hey everybody, my name is Nick. I'm a director and editor living in Taiwan, and today I'm going to be talking about Slam Dunk, the television show from the early mid-90s. I reviewed the movie, the first Slam Dunk, and I absolutely loved it. You can check out that review if you haven't seen it yet. When I reviewed that movie, a lot of people in the comments and a lot of people personally came up to me and they said, that they loved the show and that I needed to watch the show. The movie, the first Slam Dunk, stands alone without having seen the show or knowing anything about the characters. But a lot of people were telling me that you get a lot more out of it if you know about these characters. I realized that, this is a really special piece of media to a lot of people, so I really do need to check it out, especially since I loved the movie so much. So when I watched the show, I could see immediately why so many people love it so much and have such a strong connection to it. The show is a lot more comedic than the movie. There are so many funny moments in the TV show. The action of the basketball games in the show and the way that the action is drawn is just as good as in the movie, and in some ways maybe better because the 2D animation is very cool and more stylized and interesting. But the action of these basketball games is so exciting. It's like watching a real sporting event. Sometimes it's just gripping, and I found myself cheering when a basket goes in and thinking I was a little silly because this is like a drawn basketball going into a drawn hoop, and it's not real. It's been the outcome of this fake game has been known for many years, but I was watching it exciting like I was watching a real game. The drama of the TV show works a little less than the movie, but it's still good. It's just more standard, where I felt the movie, because it was dealing with themes of death and losing loved ones, was a little bit deeper. I think that the movie shows a maturing of an artistic sense, and something I'll come back to in this review is that the show is an excellent piece of media, perfect for teenagers. And that's not a knock on the show. That's actually a huge accomplishment. It's a show for teenagers that meets them on their level. And the problems and the drama and the presentation of it as more comedy, more comedic, more fun is something that I can see would have really resonated with me when I was 13, 14, 15. That doesn't mean it's bad or worse. That actually means it knew its target audience and it executed in a way that was perfect for them. And that's, what you should be doing when you're creating something. So in the TV show, it's very apparent that Sakuragi is the main character of this show. The world and the story and the plots all revolve around him, much more so than the movie does. And this is something that diehard fans, felt that the movie was lacking. They had come accustomed to knowing that Sakuragi was the main character of this series. So when the movie was more about Ryota, they felt like, something was a little bit missing. Especially since, I guess, from the comic book, that game is so important to Sakuragi's character. Now, I can understand that now after watching this show, because Sakuragi is such a great character and we follow him for so long. When I watched the film, I didn't realize, though, what a fantastic character Sakuragi really was. In the film, he's kind of like the fun comic relief guy who you follow, but in the show, he really has a lot more to him. He's a kid who has natural ability and attributes, and he doesn't have any skill in basketball because he's new to it. And so he has this arrogance about him that he thinks, he's the best. But he needs to overcome that arrogance and learn all the skills that he needs to know to become a great basketball player. And this is the core of the show. Kind of the thing that keeps you watching is watching Sakuragi progress, and you want to see him learn and get better. Again, this is a great character and a great story to follow for teenagers and young people. because he illustrates how you grow and mature and get better at things. You know, it takes Sakuragi a super long time to improve. The show, you know, has a lot of episodes, and it takes a lot of episodes for him to even add simple pieces to his game, like passing or shooting a jump shot. And he messes up a lot. Like, he'll kind of learn it, but he'll screw it up. I think in a lot of ways it's kind of like a kung fu movie where the student needs to work hard to perfect the techniques of the new things that he's learning. But it's also kind of more realistic than a kung fu movie, because a kung fu movie is condensed to 2 hours, so they have a little maybe 20-minute section of the training or whatever it is. But this is more realistic because it's a show that's spanned over many episodes, so they take the proper time for Sakuragi to actually get better, and they do it very piece by piece. You know, they show you need to learn this to get good at basketball, and then this, and then this, and this. These are all of the different parts of the game. And you might fail, and it's gonna take you time, and that's a really good lesson to learn. You know, Slam Dunk kind of has this message that natural ability doesn't get you that far. It's hard work, and it's having team members that you can learn from. And it's just such a positive show and a positive message. So this is why I think this is such a great show for teenagers and young people, because that's such a lesson that I know I needed to learn when I was younger. You know, you think, oh, I should be good at everything right away. You don't really think that hard work is something that happens. You kind of are taught by a lot of other media that, like, great people are just great. You don't know that, like, actually great people are made through perseverance and hard work. Another example of why I think this show is so good for teenagers is the love interest stuff. I think it's the way that they do it in this show is so accurate for teenage love. I remember myself really liking girls and then never being able to date them, or I liked them and they didn't like me. And it takes you a long time as a teenager to realize that. As an adult watching the show, and that's what happens to two characters, Ryota and Hanamichi Sakuragi. He has this like undying love for Hareko-san. And like as an adult watching it, you kind of think like, okay guys, it's never gonna happen for you. Maybe you should move on and think about something else. This love is just kind of one-sided. I think it speaks to the experience and the yearning that teenagers have. And it does it in like a funny, fun way that I definitely believe would have been cathartic for me to watch as a teenager. And maybe I would have learned something too, maybe through watching Hanamichi, seeing how he will probably never get with Hareko-san, and Hareko-san loves Rukawa. You know, seeing that, maybe I would have realized something about the girls that I liked when I was a teenager. I don't know, I just think there's a lot of lessons and a lot of things in this show that speak to the experiences of young people and spoke to my experiences as a young person growing up. There are many different archetypes of young people in this show. So you have the arrogant guy who's just great at everything and you're jealous of. You have Rukawa. Then you have the leader, the teacher, the mentor, Akagi, who's the older kid that teaches you and helps you and is kind of maybe a little bit stern, but you know, he actually cares about you. Then you have Michi, the guy who's talented, but he's kind of ruining it because he's a bad boy and he wants to hang out with like bad kids and do bad stuff, and he has to learn to turn his life around through discipline and back through basketball again. And you even have like the teammate, the good friend, who is in Four Eyes, they call him, and he's like the friend, the person that is reliable and really committed and, you know, maybe doesn't have the most talent but is super hardworking. So you have all these different characters that I think a lot of different people can identify with. They can think like, oh, I'm a lot like. And another reason why I think it makes a lot of sense that the movie changed perspectives to Ryota is because he doesn't get a big chunk of this show. He's the one who you kind of understand. He's kind of like another bad boy character, very talented, but he doesn't get the depth that a lot of the other characters get. Because what this show does so well is it gives so much insight and understanding of all the characters that you're following. Like Sakuragi is the main character of this show. But we get a good understanding of Akagi, we get a good understanding of Michi, we get a good understanding of Rukawa, and they all get their moments. They all get their important moments in the series and in the basketball games that they're playing. And in fact, spoiler, the most important, thrilling moment of the series happens with Four Eyes, who is, he's the bench player. He's like a side character. He's somebody you don't like feel that is like one of the main core. He's not the starting five, but he gets his moment in a way that is super emotional and probably the most impactful part of the whole show, where he shoots the game-winning shot that sends them to the championship tournament. And when he does, he flashbacks to the entire series, and you see all of the moments that built the team to where it was. And I'm telling you, I cried in the movie, the first Slam Dunk, and I felt a little embarrassed about that. I cried in this scene, and you know how embarrassed I felt about that? Like, this is a goofy cartoon for teenagers and kids, and I'm crying because some guy, and it's not even anything emotional, it's some guy making a basket, but it captures this feeling of nostalgia and what it means to accomplish something when you're a teen so well, that it really touched me. Like, the feeling of making a basket when you're on a high school sports team, the winning basket that sends your team, like, I can imagine, I never did that, but I can imagine that is just the greatest thing. The fact that they use Four Eyes as the one who does it proves it's a culmination of practice and hard work, because he's not the most talented person on the team. And so the way they did it was just so brilliant and so fitting to the themes of the whole show. It really was well done. Speaking of those flashbacks, you can tell this show was made in the TV era, because they do flashback quite a bit. You see scenes repeated over and over again. And if you think about when this show was made, it makes a lot of sense, because it's coming on every week, or maybe 2 episodes a week, or whatever it is. So it's possible that the thing they're flashing back to you hadn't seen for a year or 2 years. And maybe you just started watching the show and you'd never seen that scene. So they constantly needed to remind people of, like, okay, this is what happened before, so this is why this is important. But when you stream the show, as we watch things now, it got a little tedious for me, because like I just saw that episode. I'm watching like 5 episodes a week, maybe, or maybe more. Don't tell anyone. But you're flashing back to something you had just seen maybe 3 days ago. And so it got a little tedious, but it makes sense of why it is the way it is. It's just a little bit of a dated convention that we don't need anymore. Another really cool thing about the show is that there are just like so many Easter eggs about basketball. So if you're a basketball nerd, just like with the movie I was mentioning, like, you're gonna love this show. They do all these cool fun things like Sakuragi does the grandma shot because he can't shoot free throws, which is like basketball lore. I remember when it happened and he was doing it, I was like, oh, that's the grandma shot. I heard about the NBA player that was doing the grandma shot. All of the teams have different colors. Like, they have a team that's like the Celtics, and they put in little things like the coach is a player coach, like the Celtics had. And they have people that look like the Lakers, and they have the style of play of one of the guys is like Magic Johnson, and all that stuff is in it. So if you're a basketball nerd, as you watch the show, that's another element that keeps you engaged. You're constantly looking for, like, oh yeah, that shot that Rukawa was doing is something that Jordan did. I think where he does the slam and then the underhand layup. They put stuff like that into the show, and so as a basketball nerd or fan or whatever you are, it's fun to check out. And if you're watching with somebody who doesn't know anything about basketball, they also have something for you. They put in this thing called like Dr. T, who pops up and he gives you little bits of information about like what's going on in the game. And if you know a lot about basketball, or if you don't, it's still fun to watch, because I found myself constantly guessing like, oh, I bet Dr. T is going to come in and explain this right now. And then when you're right, like a backcourt violation happens, and I'm like, oh, I bet Dr. T's coming. And there he is. He's like, backcourt, can't pass forward and back across the court, or whatever the little rule is that you were needing to learn. You kind of are testing your own basketball knowledge if you know a lot, and if you don't know a lot about basketball, you are learning about it as you watch this show. Sonia, who you've seen on the channel, I was watching with her, and she was saying, like, every time she didn't know something that was gonna happen, it popped up and she learned about it. Another convention that they use is they have Haruko-san, they have Haruko mention things and rules to other people, to Hanamichi's friends who don't know anything about basketball. So she tells them what's going on in the game. So it's another device they use to teach the viewers about basketball as the show goes on and with the action, without breaking things up too much. As I said, I haven't seen a ton of anime, but I also was super impressed with the way that this show switches up the animation style all the time. And they do fun little experimental-y kind of things with it. Like, they change up the shots and they do funny things. They incorporate the experimental animation stuff into the comedy of the show. For example, whenever the students or the players are acting childish, they'll shrink them down and have them be like little bobblehead kind of characters that aren't the more realistically drawn versions of themselves. They become very childish and do stupid things like knock each other on the head. So that's fun to watch. And I don't know if a lot of other animes do that. I'm guessing maybe, probably yes, but for me, it was fun and funny to watch the ways and the unique, cool ways that they use animation in this show. So, I thoroughly enjoyed watching Slam Dunk. I'm super glad that people in the comments kept hounding me and telling me to watch the original show because I loved it. I would love to get more recommendations for anime because that's not something that I'm super knowledgeable about. I've seen Attack on Titan, but let me know what else I could watch. What's a great show that you think is a must watch for people? And thank you guys for supporting the channel. Remember to like, share, subscribe. Very important. Helps my small channel out. We also have memberships. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do in the membership tier yet, but I am taking suggestions and ideas, and I would love to make more content for you guys. Member support would help me a lot. I love making these YouTube videos, and it would be great to, get a little support. Give me a little tip. I'm not begging for money. That's not what I'm doing. Anyway, thank you guys, and I'll see you next time.